heavy with the risk of hail and thunder at times. And it sets the scene for a changeable spell of weather into next week, and whilst it's very mild at first, just cooling down a touch. Take care.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
to each and every one of you
for helping our great nation
find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Across England, Scotland,
Wales and Northern Ireland. On TV,
on radio
and online.
We're proud to be
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flop at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Hello, I'm Alastair Stewart, and I'd invite you to join me at noon on Saturdays and Sundays for Alastair Stewart and Friends. I've been in this business for over 40 years. Now, here at GB News, I've never been happier. I get to choose the big stories that really interest me. We hear what you have to say, and you hear what I have to say. I really hope you can join me, noon on Saturdays and Sundays.
I'm Mark Dolan. Join me at 11 on GB News for Headliners, in which I'll be joined by two of the UK's top comedians discussing tomorrow's papers. If it's an important story, we'll cover it, but we'll have some fun along the way. Headliners, the late night paper review that won't send you to sleep like the others will. 7 nights a week at 11 p.m. on GB News.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
On Mark Dolan tonight, as a brand new poll puts him ahead of Keir Starmer as best potential Prime Minister, can Sunak save the Tories? Also, can Elon Musk save free speech with his purchase of Twitter? And is a united Ireland now inevitable? Plus, we'll talk about inheritance later. Is it morally wrong? We'll discuss all of that with my all-star panel. My Mark Meets guest is Dragon's Den star, the genius behind reggae sauce, Levi Roots. In my big opinion, my first on-air comments about new Prime Minister Rishi Sunak. He's not liked by many on his own side, and he's got more baggage than Heathrow Airport. But if he secures our borders, fixes the economy and gets the best out of Brexit, he will win the next election. And in my take at 10, more COVID tyranny from the EU, and they boast about crushing free speech in the bloc. Thank God we're out. Plus tomorrow's papers with my all-star panel, lots to get through, and we don't do boring, not on my watch. I'll see you after the headlines with Tatiana Sanchez.
Thank you, Mark. This is the latest from the GB newsroom. The Northern Ireland Secretary says he will call a snap election in the country, but hasn't said when. Chris Heaton-Harris said he would give more information next week and would meet with Stormont parties. There's been no fully functioning devolved government since February. The DUP is blocking the restoration of power sharing in its protest against the Northern Ireland Protocol. Mr Heaton-Harris added he's faced with limited options.
I have limited options ahead of me. I'm under a legal duty to call an election within 12 weeks. I've had lots and lots of talks with all the parties and will continue to do so. And that I hear it when parties say that they really do not want an election at all. But nearly all of them are parties who signed up to the rules, the law that means I need to call an election. So you'll hear more from me on that particular point next week.
Leader of the DUP, Geoffrey Donaldson, says rather than an election, the focus should be on the restoration of Stormont.
I'd rather spend the next few weeks getting a solution, getting this done, sorting out the problems, the real everyday problems that people face with this protocol, whether it's access to medicines, whether it is the price of goods in our supermarkets. This is unacceptable. And I want to see the government now turn its focus clearly to getting this sorted out. And I think the people of Northern Ireland need to know now where we're going with this.
Scotland's First Minister will attend the COP27 climate summit as the Prime Minister's facing backlash over his decision not to go. The Scottish Government has confirmed Nicola Sturgeon will be going to the conference in Egypt next month. Meanwhile, Rishi Sunak is coming under widespread criticism. Speaking this morning from Croydon University Hospital, he said he will instead be focusing on domestic issues.
We're an example for others to follow at the pace in which we've reduced climate emissions, how we're going about protecting our environment, and those things are really important to me. It's important to me that as Prime Minister we leave behind an environment that is better for our children and grandchildren. I'm very passionate about that. I'm very personally committed to it, and I just think at the moment it's right that I'm also focusing on the depressing domestic challenges we have with the economy, and I think that's what people watching would reasonably expect me to be doing as well.
During his first official visit as Prime Minister, Mr Sunak faced questions from patients over his upcoming autumn budget and funding of the NHS.
Yeah, and have you had some family come visit you?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah. And they've looked after you really nicely?
Yeah, they always do.
Yeah.
It's a pity you don't pay them more.
Well, we are trying. We are trying.
No, you're not trying. You need to try harder.
Right, I will take that away. Yeah. No, well, they are a very nice team there, aren't they?
They are, but it's important because they do very hard.
TV, online and DAB Plus radio. This is GB News. Now it's back to Mark Dolan tonight.
My thanks to Tatiana Sanchez, who returns in an hour's time. Welcome to Mark Dolan tonight. Yet another action-packed show on the way. As a brand new poll puts him ahead of Keir Starmer as best potential Prime Minister, can Sunak save the Tories? We'll hear from a top Labour councillor and Michael Gove's former advisor, both live in the studio. In the news agenda with my panel, can entrepreneur Elon Musk save free speech with his purchase of the social media giant Twitter? Also, is a united Ireland now inevitable? And is inheritance morally wrong? Reacting to those stories and many more are my all-star panel of columnist and glamorous broadcaster Lizzie Cundy, top journalist, radio and Fleet Street legend Mike Porky Parry, and ethnographer and top academic Dr. Lisa Mackenzie. The doctor's in the house. My Mark Meets guest is extra tasty. So excited to meet Dragon's Den star and the genius behind reggae sauce, Levi Roots, live in the studio, telling his incredible rags to riches story. Apparently, he made £30 million. Nice work if you can get it. As always, we have the papers at exactly 10:30 with reaction from my panel, and I want to hear from you throughout the show. The best bit of my programme is when you get in touch, mark@gbnews.uk. So for the next 2 hours, big debates, big guests, and always big opinions. Let's start with this one. This year, we've been through more Prime Ministers than James Corden's been through Krispy Kreme donuts. But I think this guy may be a keeper.
Mr. Speaker, he talks about mandates, about votes, about elections. It's a bit rich coming from the person who tried to overturn the biggest democratic vote in our country's history. Our mandate is based on a manifesto that we were elected on, to remind him an election that we won and they lost. A mandate that says we want a stronger NHS, better schools, safer streets, control of our borders and levelling up.
Boom! Sunak 1, Starmer 0. Following a commanding and confident performance at Prime Minister's questions after just one day in the job, this man with a plan is nudging the Tories away from electoral oblivion. With not just a 6-point poll reversal, which I'll grant you is a drop in the ocean, but also with a shock new voter survey, which reveals the public have Rishi Sunak ahead of Keir Starmer in terms of who would make the best Prime Minister. Now, Labour are still streets ahead, but old Sunak now has 2 years to audition for the big job. If he strengthens our borders, ends those boat crossings in the Channel, gets rid of the Northern Ireland Protocol, which divides our country down the Irish Sea, if he legislates against the woke, politically correct madness that's infiltrating schools, universities and other public institutions, and if he can tackle inflation and set Britain on a long-term sustainable path to recovery, if he can help the most vulnerable in our society through what's going to be a winter of discontent, and if he can police the streets and boost our defence, then Sunak won't just make ground on Labour, he will blitz them at the next election. Whatever your political colour, in the end, we all need this man to succeed. We're in a national economic emergency, facing a potential existential threat to our status as a preeminent global force. It's make or break, sink or swim, do or die. Well, Sunak has already started doing, sensibly delaying the budget statement until November, when spending commitments and rates of taxation can be predicated on more up-to-date and reliable data. But his presence has already been felt. He already cuts a figure as a steady hand at the tiller, and the financial markets would appear to agree. The pound has recovered handsomely, and the cost of government borrowing has fallen. And there's more good news to come, which is that inflation may have peaked and should come down in the months ahead, which means interest rates will likely not reach the cricket score figures we once feared. They too may well in time come down again. And with tumbling gas prices, that government commitment to subsidise everyone's heating bills will hopefully cost a fraction of what was once first feared. It's going to be a torrid year or two, absolutely. No one is denying that. But there's been a flavour of optimism since old Sunak arrived at number 10. A decent communicator and someone that looks like they're willing to grasp the nettle of the all-important issues facing this country. The Telegraph reports Sunak's going to fight political correctness by introducing laws that protect the status of biological women and female-only spaces and enforce the legal primacy of biology over gender. Praise the Lord. As well as clamping down on bonkers and inappropriate so-called sex education classes for youngsters. And his decision to reappoint Suella Braverman as Home Secretary, whilst politically expensive for him, is a price worth paying. Yes, she's leakier than a Leicester City fullback, but she's been serious about tackling illegal migration to this country, which is a humanitarian, economic and national security disaster. Sunak has shown courage by reinstalling her just 6 days after she was fired or quit, depending on who you speak to. Those figures in the media so keen to hound her out of office are the same people who are happy to see 1,000 individuals a day descend on our shores illegally, placing those with a genuine case for asylum at the back of the queue. Don't forget the Daily Mail reported that this summer 40% of those crossing the Channel were from Albania. This is a country that hasn't had military conflict for a quarter of a century. It's more peaceful than the Isle of Bloody Wight. It seems Rishi has a plan. As the Telegraph report, he seeks an ambitious new migrant deal with France. We'll hold him to it. He knows he will be judged on this in 2 years' time. So, by bringing back Braverman, Sunak is clearly serious about tackling the migrant crossings. He's serious about tackling inflation. He's serious about tackling hard-left woke ideology. He's serious about the job at hand. He's a serious man for serious times, and he's annoying all the right people, including the Labour MP Nadia Whittome, who said his arrival at number 10 is not a win for Asian representation. Wow. This hot on the heels of Labour MP Rupa Huq, of course, saying that our talented and deeply underrated ex-Chancellor Kwasi Kwarteng is only superficially black. Amazing. Is back to me, folks. Put me on TV. Can we please, this is live telly, folks. Some of you think it's pre-recorded. Let me please educate you about that one. So there you go. Kwasi Kwarteng, only superficially black. What are the implications of that sentence? Is Rishi Sunak only superficially Asian? You'll have to ask the Labour Party. Do they have a problem with people of colour having conservative views? Do they have a problem with a British Asian man being rich and making something of his life? You tell me. Meanwhile, in America... OK, Sam, you can give me Trevor Noah now. This is the television comedian Trevor Noah, who caused a storm in a rant about some perceived backlash against Sunak being Prime Minister of this country because of his background. Take a listen to this.
Watching the story of Rishi Sunak becoming England's first Prime Minister of colour, of Indian descent, of all of these things, and then seeing the backlash is one of the more telling... it's just one of the more telling things about how people view the role that they or their people have played in history. And what I mean by that is this. You hear a lot of the people saying, oh, they're taking over. You know, now the Indians are going to take over Great Britain, and what's next?
OK, amazing. Who said Indians are taking over Britain? What is this supposed backlash? I read all the papers every day, and I live on Twitter. Ask my kids. I must have missed this backlash. Now, there is racism in this country. It's the most evil stain on humanity, and there are bigots amongst us. But did you identify any racial element to criticism of Rishi Sunak this week? Well, this is the view of his colleague and another Conservative MP of colour. They're so diverse, these Tories. The brilliant Sajid Javid, who tweeted this about the so-called comedy sketch. Javid said, "This is simply wrong. a narrative catered to his audience at a cost of being completely detached from reality. Britain is the most successful multiracial democracy on earth, and I'm proud of this historic achievement. Saj, I'm with you all the way on that. In fact, I'll go further, because what Trevor Noah said was a flat lie. What backlash? This is the US progressive left doing what it does best, stirring division and inventing a toxic fairy tale for clicks. And note the fully masked audience made up of brainwashed zombies. Did California not get the memo that the pandemic's over? America has fallen. Now, Sunak is not perfect. Many see him as a globalist puppet, pushing for digital currencies and a technocratic dystopia. He's got more baggage than the Kardashians on holiday. The billionaire wife, the green card affair, and the non-dom status. But frankly, I couldn't care less how rich he is. Sunak could be the Sultan of Brunei, for all I care, as long as he fixes the economy, secures our borders, and gets us back on a path to recovery. And I do think it is quite a moment for the country that someone like this should become our Prime Minister. And when I say someone like this, I mean someone so short, in number 10. Take a look. He's tiny. Less than tall men everywhere are rejoicing. So yes, this PM might be short, but he's got plenty of stature. He's a potential giant of British politics. And for those on the right still berating this pint-sized PM, remember it's a clear choice at the next election. Prime Minister Sunak or Prime Minister Starmer. Be careful what you wish for. Many in his own ranks do not like Rishi Sunak, but it's my view that Conservative supporters must make a choice. Do they want Rishi Sunak to win the next election or Keir Starmer and a coalition of hell? Let me know your thoughts. Mark at gbnews.uk. What are your first impressions of Dishy Rishi? Do let me know your thoughts. Let's get the opinions now of my fantastic panel. We have Fleet Street and radio legend Mike Porky Parry. We have showbiz queen Lizzie Cundy and top academic Dr. Lisa McKenzie. Well, let me start with you, Lisa. Great to have you back on the programme. Rishi Sunak's going to give Labour a run for their money.
Well, yeah, I think he is, actually. I mean, I'm not a big supporter of politicians in general at all. But, as a spectator to this and, I'm an audience member, I do think that Rishi Sunak is going to give Starmer a run for his money just because I think the country after the last few years are, they want someone calm, they want someone, like you said, who appears to be in control. Keir Starmer has sort of been pushing for that identity over the last couple of months. And Rishi Sunak, I think, has that. So I do think that Rishi Sunak is going to give Starmer a run for his money. But let's see what the policies are, because that's what I'm waiting for. That's what I'm interested in, is what are they going to do about whether there's going to be austerity or not. I mean, that really worries me, just because we had 10 years of austerity. I know what communities have been left with, which is virtually nothing. I know how difficult it is now to get GP appointments, dentists, etc. So I'm more interested in the policy, not the man.
What do you make, Lisa McKenzie, of a poll suggesting that Rishi Sunak is considered a more suitable Prime Minister than Keir Starmer? Worth pointing out, reminding viewers and listeners that Labour are streets ahead in terms of regular polling, but just as individuals, it seems like Starmer's already lagging behind our new Prime Minister.
Well, I think no one knows who Starmer is or what he stands for. I think that's been his problem from when he took over. He doesn't have a story, he doesn't have an identity. And I know over the last few weeks, especially at the Labour conference, he really tried to give himself a narrative, because that's what people want. They want a narrative. They want to be able to know who you are, where you've come from, where you're going, what you believe in. Politics is as much about narrative and storytelling as it is about policies and and sort of power. So I think one of the things that Starmer has really struggled with is telling that narrative. Who is he? And I know, when he was on I think it was the TUC the other week, actually, he was sort of talking about his sister, and she's a carer, and how she was struggling, and financially she struggles from week to week. And I remember listening to it thinking, well, why don't you help her out? I'm sure you can afford to help your sister out. So I'm not sure he is... I'm not sure his story is hitting with the public.
Yes, I just wonder whether shares in Rishi Sunak have been too low for too long now, Lizzie Cundy, and that he's going to surprise a few people.
Well, I think he will surprise a few people, Mark, but I can't see him, like, on a zip wire in Union Jack shorts or trying to rugby tackle some kid. I can't see him. He's the calm factor, and already we can see the markets are calming. But Rishi... he's got to be more than words. He has to show in action that he's going to take hold of this economy and do something with it. And most of all, our borders, the immigration. I mean, the amount that are coming over on the boats.
1,000 a day.
35,000 I hear already. And it's going to be 40,000 by Christmas. He really does need to take charge, Mark. And he did very well against Keir Starmer. I have to say, I don't think Keir Starmer landed one punch. I'll be honest with that. I mean, Keir Starmer tries so hard. He's going to go on about his wealth, but that can only go on for so long, and this mudslinging. And I think... apart from the old age pensioner, which you've got to be a bit careful, which gave him a bit of run for his money today, I really think Rishi can really turn things around. And I actually do think, weirdly, I was thinking on the way in, Liz Truss has weirdly helped Rishi, because I really do feel with her doing so terribly, we've forgotten all about his mistakes with furloughing, like Victoria Beckham's company and other things. And she's kind of put him in there. And it's funny that he lost against the lettuce, and now he's now in and the champ. It's amazing what happens in a week in politics.
And Mike Porky Parry, look at the Americans, the American left, the progressive left, woke comedians drumming up this fake story, this non-story about a racist backlash against Rishi Sunak. As I said in the monologue, there is racism in our country. It's the most evil thing. But that was not the flavour of the narrative around the last few days.
No, not at all. And Lizzie's just mentioned about the wealth. I think we should understand that although Rishi is a wealthy man, he's not mega wealthy. That's his wife, right? Because his wife owns a percentage of her billionaire father's company. So it's by association. And you wouldn't get criticism of Rishi if it was the other way around, if he was very rich and his wife wasn't. But getting back to whether he can pull it back, and by the way, the Americans are all over the place. They're dealing with Sleepy Joe. They don't really know what to make of Sleepy Joe, the relationship he's going to have with Rishi Sunak. But me thinking that I'm smarter than the average bear, I rang up a mate of mine just 2 nights ago who runs one of the top bookmakers in this country. And I thought, I'm going to be very clever here. What about Rishi Sunak winning the next election in about 2 years? I thought I'd get about 25 to 1, OK? Do you know what I was quoted? 6-4 for the Conservatives to get the biggest number of seats. That would be the same position that Theresa May was in when she held an election, but she wasn't 35 points behind. Now, the bookies are not usually very wrong, are they? So if they're looking at that, that's because they've been to analysts and tried to work out what's going on in the political world and can he get it back. Some of Rishi's decisions don't accord with me. I can't understand why we're going to have tax on businesses, corporation tax, at 25% when it's 12% across the Irish Sea in Ireland. And also, he's going to have to decide what to do with all the tax measures and the subsidies to people for their energy costs, which at the moment run out next April, but which I'm sure he will revise. So the point I'm making is, I think, unlike Liz Truss, who plunged us into utter economic chaos, Rishi's playing the long game. And he's saying all the right things at the moment to keep the markets happy, but I believe he will subtly change.
OK, well, what's your view? Can you give me a report card for Rishi Sunak after 4 days at number 10? Mark at gbnews.uk. In my take at 10, more COVID tyranny from the EU, plus they're now crushing free speech. You won't want to miss my take at 10 monologue at the top of the next hour. Also in the next hour, my Mark Meets guest live in the studio, Dragon's Den superstar, the man, of course, famous for reggae sauce, Levi Roots, joins us to talk about his multi-million-pound fortune. But next, in the big question, can Rishi save the Tories? We'll discuss that with the top Labour councillor and Michael Gove's former top advisor. See you in 2.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akua, on Friday, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today.
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Friday, Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here. You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Every Saturday at 2 o'clock, join me, Darren Grimes, for Real Britain. I'm not afraid to give you a platform and say it how it is.
Come on, make the case. Something like this is very, very important to people.
And we're always up for a laugh on this show.
God, honestly, you'd think there were no problems in the world.
Real Britain, every Saturday on GB News.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flock at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
To each and every one of you.
for helping our great nation.
Find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Across England, Scotland,
Wales and Northern Ireland.
On TV.
on radio,
And online.
We're proud to be
The People's Channel. Britain's news channel.
Well, a big reaction to my big opinion monologue on email, mark@gbnews.uk. This from Rick, who says, "Hi, Mark, I agree. Rishi has pleasantly surprised me as well, and I'm starting to turn. But I fear he will never crack the red wall in his gold-plated millionaire loafers." Rick, thank you for your elegantly written email. Harry says, "Mark, I agree with your monologue, and it will be nice seeing a Tory Prime Minister earning his wages for once and doing what he's paid to do." Chris says, "Hi, Mark, I don't care if fishy Rishi has a few bob, but how rich is Porky if he says 750 million is not mega rich. Well, let me tell you about my panellist, radio and Fleet Street legend Mike Porky Parry. He owns more property than Donald Trump, for God's sakes. Independently wealthy, doesn't even go there. Plus, he got sacked so many times from the Daily Express and the Sun. All those payoffs, the drinks are on him. I'll get to more of your emails shortly, but it's time now for this. He got sacked from TalkSport as well. Listen, it's time for the big question in which we tackle a major news story of the day. A week is a long time in politics, especially in Britain, and even more so for the Tory party. Rishi Sunak has been appointed Prime Minister and he hasn't been messing around. Is this Tory 2.0? Or Tory 10.0. The new Prime Minister has given the Conservatives a bounce in the latest YouGov poll for the Times. Now, of course, there's a mountain to climb for the Tory party to get anywhere near to winning the next election. But with an uptick in the economy and a whiff of unity coming from the Tory backbenches, can Rishi rescue the Tories? To debate this, I'm delighted to welcome a rising star of the Labour Party, Labour councillor Fatima Kamara, and former special advisor to Michael Gove, who, of course, is back in the cabinet, Charlie Rowley. Well, look, great to have both of you with me. Fatima, if I could start with you. Labour supporters must be sort of essentially quaking in their boots about this rather impressive new Prime Minister. He looks very sprightly opposite Keir Starmer, don't you think?
Mark, what can I say? I think definitely the first PMQ, you know, Rishi Sunak has to put forward his best foot forward. So that's his A game, right? So I don't think it's too early to say that Rishi Sunak is going to give the Tory party the leap and heap of sprint that they need.
Do you think he's still in the honeymoon?
I think he's in the honeymoon stage, and I think also what would be very useful is to have 100 days of Rishi Sunak. 100 days of Rishi Sunak, how he's performing, because we feel as a whole, whether it's the population and the economy, we just feel like people have just gone through a plug hole, literally, you know, from the 2019, you know, we're far removed from the Tory mandate and the manifesto, which is what now Rishi Sunak said he's going to work with. But how? How is he going to work with that? And I think he's cleverly done that in terms of the kind of the MPs and his cabinet that he's chosen to start off with. You know, they say have your friends closer and your enemies even closer. So you don't have the rattle and the raging from the backbenchers, from your enemies that you have to deal with. So having them in the room and actually realising that actually it's all of us. And that is why, apparently, he said, you know, come together or die or something, some sort of terminology.
Yeah, pretty dramatic language.
Exactly, pretty dramatic for a leader.
Unite or die, I think.
Exactly, unite or die. And actually, when you come to...
was the line from Rocky, but anyway.
Exactly, and I think for him to say that, it's actually hitting very hard. Yeah. And actually comes across as in, you know, if we don't do this together, however they're going to do it, they are going to have to defend their seat as MPs. So actually, it's in their best interest. But what I see is this, is that we as a community and we as the United Kingdom need to put the people of the United Kingdom first and the politicians second, because these are the people that voted for us.
And I hear what you're saying, Fatima, if we're going to put the people first, why would your leader call for a general election, which would create market chaos and huge uncertainty for the country?
But that is what we need. We need
How is an election in the national interest?
No, that is
what did they give you in the green room?
That is what we need, Mark. That is what we need, because, you know...
2 months of uncertainty and then a hung parliament?
We're three prime ministers away from where we started. And even in the past 3, we're not elected. So, you know, we need to have a general election. We are looking at a very different status of play. You know, we're faced with an economic crisis. We have gas bills and everything else going up. The general food, you know, items that people buy on a day-to-day basis, they can't afford it. So we need to go back to the people and the people to decide. It's not for us to decide.
Is a big spending Labour government the answer to our economic woes? I've always always said Labour have done good things in times of plenty, but now the cupboard's bare, Britain's broke. The Labour Party, if there was a Labour government, in the pockets of the unions, giving everyone a pay rise. Where's that money going to come from?
Mark, we're still waiting for the fiscal responsibility report from the Conservative Party, which we should have had in summer, and we haven't had that. So let's go back and talk about that. So talking about Labour Party, we're not in power. We are making pledges and promises, and when we come into power, we would deliver on what we've said. But if we're having a government that is in power and actually we're faced with such a dire situation, as a whole, as a population, and without even giving us the fiscal responsibility, they're talking about this is what we're going to do and this is how it's going to be done. Show us the money. Where's the money coming from, and who's going to be paying for that?
Listen, Charlie, some strong points there from Fatima. Some of it compelling. Many of my viewers will agree, others will disagree. The bottom line is that Sunak got off to a good start. Fatima said it's early days. She's quite right. And the issue is that this mountain is just too high to climb, isn't it, for the Tories?
Well, look, there's no doubt that we've been through a tumultuous period, and it's a new change in Prime Minister. It's a bit like going from that pumpkin to a golden carriage, from Liz Truss to Rishi Sunak, who has now led the Tories. He's only been in the office for 4 days. We've seen that bounce in the polls. I want to know what he's going to do in 4 weeks, 4 months, and hopefully 4 years.
I mean, the 6 point, he's recovered, clawed back 6 points, which is negligible, isn't it? Labour are still absolutely in overall majority territory. They're in landslide territory. However, significantly, Sunak seems to be beating Keir Starmer in personal ratings already after 4 days. I wonder how significant that metric is.
I think it's hugely significant because this is a guy who has got the experience. He's a communicator, which Liz, by her own admission, wasn't the best. But Rishi has led the country as the Chancellor of the Exchequer through the most difficult period of our recent history during COVID. He had to...
Some would say he caused it, Charlie.
Well, he would disagree because I think he would be saying that he was actually sort of trying to keep the economy open and trying to find other ways to keep life as normal as possible during other voices around the table that wanted to keep this country locked down. No less Sir Keir Starmer that wanted to keep the country locked down.
Keir Starmer called Freedom Day reckless, and we know from a recent Spectator interview that actually Sunak was quite a lockdown sceptic within the cabinets. And there was that Mail on Sunday story at the beginning of the year that Rees-Mogg, Sunak and Lord Frost had confronted the Prime Minister about not cancelling Christmas. So it's important to put that on the record.
Precisely. But what he's...
Not like your boss, Michael Gove, who's Mr. Lockdown.
Well, look, there were huge debates around the table, and every country across the world was having to deal with this difficult pandemic. And, there'll be lessons to learn. There's an inquiry going on, and everybody needs to learn the lessons from that. But what Rishi's been able to do during that time is to go to the country and say, look, we need to protect people's wages, we need to protect businesses and their income. So we stepped in with the furlough scheme.
If you're going to lock people down, you're going to have to support them.
Totally. And so he recognises the difficult challenges that the economy currently still faces, and which is why he's going to have to, and which is why he's the best man for the job, to lead the country through this now economic period where there are, as Fatima rightly said, there is economic pressures on people's bills, their food bills, their energy bills, normal day costs of goods, mortgages, pensions. He is the only man, in my opinion, that will know the pressures that people are under, and because he stepped in before, he'll step in again, and that's why he's the right man for the job, to reassure the markets, along with Jeremy Hunt, which was a great thing that Liz did to bring him in as the Chancellor, and which is why I think we're seeing that bounce in the polls, which is why, as I say, after only 4 days, that's a good thing. Let's see what happens in the next 4 months, 4 weeks and the next 4 years.
He's got to overcome some image challenges, one among Conservative supporters, many watching this programme who just see him as a backstabber, who have actually been tearing up their party membership now that he is Prime Minister, plus the perception that this guy is a very rich man who's about to inflict on austerity on the country and send families that are already struggling into penury. That's not a good look for the Tory party, is it? To have this elite figure inflicting financial damage, none of which he will feel.
So the two, if we separate them outside, look, I totally understand if you're a Conservative Party member, if you're a card-carrying Conservative, you've paid your money, you support the Tories, you want to be able to vote in those leadership
And many
elections.
of them don't like Rishi to this day.
Well, they
don't trust him.
Well, look, I voted for him in the first round when it was...
Hashtag right side of history.
When it was... Well, you know, I was also part of the Remain campaign, so I was, you know, wrong then. But,
we're
you know,
all allowed to change our minds.
Yes. Happy to admit when we're wrong. And I think, look, if you're a Tory party member, regardless of whether you got to vote in this election, which obviously we didn't, because I think it was the right thing to do for the country to have that stability quickly. If we didn't have that on Monday, we still probably wouldn't have had a Prime Minister by tonight, actually. It might have been announced tonight.
Or you might have had a
So,
Prime Minister in Penny Mordaunt that the parliamentary party couldn't stand.
And whilst I love Penny, I think she's got a brilliant career ahead of her, and she's brilliant in the Cabinet, and she will continue to serve. I think it was the right thing to do to have Rishi in place in quick succession to lead the country through the difficult time that we're facing. So I can understand if you're a member, you might be frustrated you didn't have a vote. But the reality is, when you get behind your leader, and when you see the kind of leadership that Rishi is offering and to be able to tackle the difficult decisions that have got to be taken, when you see that bounce in the poll, when you see how good he was at Prime Minister's questions, of course, you're going to forget about the fact that you didn't have a vote. You will continue to go and knock on doors, deliver those leaflets, support the Tory
And what
cause.
about the out-of-touch billionaire story?
Well,
one of the richest families in the country, and you know, the Chancellor and now Prime Minister is the author of all of this economic damage.
And I think when you attack, on a political level, when you attack someone's wealth, it's actually quite cheap because, you know, you don't choose who your parents are. You don't choose what family you're born into, whether you're rich or from a low-income background.
Sunak made his own dosh, didn't he?
Well, he was very successful in the city, and I don't think that's a bad thing. And that's why Labour, I think, didn't quite land the blows that it wanted to at PMQs, because it's presenting itself, and it has to present itself, as a pro-business, pro-innovation, pro-enterprise party to win back the votes that have abandoned them over the last few years. So it has to be careful when it's attacking people that might have earned a bit of cash in years gone by. But Rishi himself, being born into a family who actually weren't wealthy, but have made good money, marrying somebody, you know, you don't choose who you're born to, you don't choose who you love, and he's married someone that obviously comes from a wealthy background. I think people can see how cheap that political attack is and will want to take Rishi, not just for what he looks like, but what for he actually does.
Well, definitely, when I married Mrs. Dolan, I married for personality, and that was my first mistake. But listen, Fatima, your reaction to what Charlie's had to say there, the headache for Labour is that the Tories look like they've got their act together, and they now have someone in number 10 who's a man with a plan.
That's always what we've always been thinking when Liz Truss started. That was it. You know, yes, we've gone through all the hostings and everything like that. You know, this is someone who can steady the sheep, so to speak. I think from Rishi Sunak's first speech in the House during PMQ, he was being asked questions, and I take on board what Charlie's saying about wealth and all of that. That comes to play because people are living in austerity, so they're going to question you and say, well, how can you relate to me that I don't have this amount of money? How are you going to make policies and act on things that need to be, you know, have an impact?
But you know, all politicians are privileged. They're all rolling in it. 80 grand a year, Fatima.
Of course.
But Keir Starmer's worth 7 million quid.
Exactly. No comparison. So what I'm...
I beg your pardon. He's a rich man.
So no comparison to Rishi Sunak. So what I'm trying to say to you, Mark, is this. Now, when Rishi Sunak was being asked questions in PMQ, all of the questions he was being asked, especially from Keir Starmer, I didn't hear him come with anything that that was quite substantive. Nothing at all. Or we're going to look into that. This is how it's going to be done. Or I need to, you know, it's only a few days, only a few hours and things like that. I didn't think that he said anything that hadn't been said before. So I would want to see going forward what is Rishi Sunak going to do and how is he going to deliver? Today he went to hospital. A patient was telling him, you know, you need to pay the nurses. You need to pay them good wages. I come from a nursing background. I know what it means to work long shift. I know what it means to work 12-hour shift. And now, as it stands, nurses are putting in an extra day that they're not paid for. So when he was being told, you know, you really need to make sure that you pay the nurses and make sure you look after them, it's, you know, he was deviating, I'm just happy to be in this hospital. That is not what we need to hear. We need to hear flesh and meat, not bones.
Well, on that we can agree. We definitely need to see the colour of his money and what his plan is. Charlie, the clock's against us, only got a couple of seconds, but your boss back in the Cabinet, is that to keep him out of trouble or what? Keep your enemies close.
No. I think it's about getting the adults back round the table, getting them back in the room, people of experience, people that are good communicators, that people can then articulate what it is to be a Conservative, what this government's going to do, and that's why we're going to be successful at the next general election.
There you have it. There you have it, folks. Back to me, Sam. There you go. The Ghosters back. My thanks to Fatima Kamara and Charlie Rowley. A brilliant debate. Hope to see both of you again very soon. Well, we asked whether you think that Rishi can rescue the Tories. 40% say yes, 60% say no. So plenty of people that need to be converted. Coming up, is Rishi Sunak right to cop out of COP27? That's right, he won't be turning up to the climate conference. Is that the right thing to do? Also, is a united Ireland now inevitable? And is inheritance immoral? And don't forget my Mark Meet guest at 10 is Dragon's Den star, Mr. Reggae Sauce himself, Levi Roots. And the papers at 10:30. I'll see you in 2.
Weekday afternoons on GB News, we've got the whole of the UK covered. From 12 to 3, it's GB News Day with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Gloria Di Piero. You'll get the very latest on everything that's been going on across our great nation.
And from 3 till 6, watch out for GB News Live with me, Patrick Christys. I'm not here to mess around. With all the biggest topics and guests, you will always be up to date. GB News Day and GB News Live from 12 p.m.
Only on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of 2 wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
My name's Tom Harwood, and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
On Mark Dolan tonight, we have a simple plan, which is to inform, stimulate and entertain in equal measure. It's all about getting your opinions on the national television airwaves. I love my viewer emails, mark@gbnews.uk. So do join me from 9 p.m. to midnight every Friday, Saturday and Sunday for big guests, big opinions and a big presenter. 6'5", don't you know? See you then on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, Matt. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christys, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.
Join me, Arlene Foster, for The Briefing on GB News. Every Friday at 3 p.m, I'll give you all the latest political news and analysis, and we'll have robust live debate. To make sure that you're caught up on all of the biggest issues of the day, we'll bring on experts in their field. I'll ask the questions that you'd like to ask. We're not afraid to tackle discussions from all perspectives, including yours. Don't forget, The Briefing with me, Arlene Foster, every Friday at 3 p.m. on GB News.
Now, if you're joining us, we bring you the very sad news that Jerry Lee Lewis, the incredible rock and roll star, one of the originators, the founding fathers of rock and roll, has sadly died at the age of 87. Lots of tributes coming in from Rod Stewart. Ringo Starr said, God bless Jerry Lee Lewis. Peace and love to all his family. Sir Elton John, who says that his love of the piano was influenced by Lewis, wrote on his Instagram page, without Jerry Lee Lewis, I wouldn't have become who I am today. He was groundbreaking and exciting, and he pulverised the piano. Wow, high praise. There you go. So rest in peace, Jerry Lee Lewis. Lots more to come, including the papers at 10:30 with my panel. But the Prime Minister, now which one? Well, it's Rishi Sunak today, is facing criticism after announcing he won't be attending the COP27 climate summit in Egypt. Rishi Sunak says it's due to urgent, pressing domestic challenges and claims it's the right move considering the Chancellor's upcoming autumn budget. The decision has been dubbed a failure of leadership by opposition leader Keir Starmer and shameful by Green MP Caroline Lewis. But are his critics right? Should Sunak skip COP27? Has he copped out, Lizzie Cundy?
He has copped out. Do you know what he could have done? I know he's got the autumn budget, we've got this huge economic crisis. He's got to fill that awful black hole. I mean, everything is going on in this country. It's a disaster. But I really do feel, Mark, he could go for a couple of days, show his face, even call up Charlie Boy and go, King Charles, come with me, let's go. But, look, we have got huge problems here, so I can understand his reasoning, but it would be, a chance for him to go on the world stage. And if not, why not get King Charles to go?
I think some of my viewers will be delighted that he's not going because it means he hasn't signed up to sort of the net zero orthodoxy. I mean, I'm all for cleaning the planet up, Liz.
We all are.
Well, but I'm saying
he
he doesn't have to go for the whole thing. Could he not go for a day and come back? He can go to Egypt
signing up to that ideology by flying.
But he could do that. He could do his work from the hotel in Egypt for a day. He could go in and go out, show his face. I think it would be something just to go for a bit. But
by the way, Michael, you're the master media manipulator. You have shaped public opinion for decades.
Yes, I have indeed.
On the radio and on, of course, in print.
Yes, exactly.
And
on television even. You know what I mean?
Just occasionally.
They've got the face for television these days.
Do. Michael, here's the thing. This is not by accident.
Well,
this is nothing to do with him being busy, is it?
There are so many problems he's got to solve in this country, OK? And we've got to solve in the world. Now, the climate change situation is a huge debate, but I'm not a climate change denier. There are things that we have to do to try and stabilise the atmosphere around the Earth, but I believe a lot of it is to do with the natural working of the universe and the planets and all that kind of stuff, OK? But what I'm saying is, don't put this at the top of your priority list, because...
It's like listening to David Attenborough.
Yeah, it is.
It's an education.
Can
you all just quieten down and listen to Mike Porky Barry?
You're privileged. What I'm saying is, a lot of the climate change debate is based on algorithms and projections.
Crap modelling.
Algorithms, modelling and projections by so-called experts, OK?
Which were wrong on COVID.
But they've been wrong on so many occasions. By now, there shouldn't be any ice left in the Arctic if we'd have believed what they said 30 years ago, OK? And that's not come to pass. So what I'm saying is, yes, we must give consideration to the climate around the Earth, but let's, first of all, deal with the facts. And the facts of the situation are we are in an economic crisis. We're not in a climate crisis yet. We are in an economic apocalypse. We're not in a climate apocalypse. So deal with the situations that we know are right and need dealing with.
I agree with all of that, but also I think he's also not going as a statement because he does not want to sign up to that ideology.
Well, what I'm saying is, don't put that to the top of your list. There's a hierarchy of priorities that every leader has to deal with, and that should not be, in my view, at the top of his list. I'm glad he's not going, because if he had done, it would have given fuel to the idea that we all wander into the climate change debate blindly.
Well, what I'm doing here is like I said, I'm a spectator. I'm an audience member I'm an anarchist, so I watch.
And you've got an open mind.
Yeah, and also, I'm a sociologist, so I'm watching The Social. Good. And I think what he's doing here, it's a clear message to the British public that he's saying, my business is with you at home. And that's what I think he's doing. He's saying a very clear message here. My business is with you at home. I understand that that we've got a crisis at home. People are worried about their energy bills, food, etc. My business is here with you. And I think he's making a very clear message with that.
But can I just quickly say, look, I agree with both of you.
Well, you just love going to Egypt.
No, because there are bigger problems here at home. But I think to be seen as this new caring Prime Minister who care to win voters back in, to show his face, go for 24 hours.
And bankrupt the country with green bonkers policies, flaky renewables.
And meet the other country, be on the world stage.
He's closed down fracking. Listen, he's closed down fracking.
I know.
So don't let it go to
frack. But at the end of the day, we need to put all our energy and time into the other countries like America and China and India.
Right. Do you remember last year when they were all flying in on private jets?
Oh, there you go. Hypocrisy. There you go. Listen, so much more to come. You're watching Mark Dolan tonight. In the next hour, in My Take at 10, more COVID tyranny from the EU. Thank God we're out. Also, I'm delighted to say in the studio is Levi Roots, Mr. Reggae Sauce, and my panel reacting to tomorrow's papers. And there's lots to talk about. I'll see you in 2.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
To each and every one of you.
for helping our great nation
Find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Across England,
Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
on TV,
On radio and online.
We're proud to be
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh, my goodness, brilliant. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. Over a drink, we have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flock at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Hello, I'm Alastair Stewart, and I'd invite you to join me at noon on Saturdays and Sundays for Alastair Stewart and Friends. I've been in this business for over 40 years. Now, here at GB News, I've never been happier. I get to choose the big stories that really interest me. We hear what you have to say, and you hear what I have to say. I really hope you can join me, noon on Saturdays and Sundays.
I'm Mark Dolan. Join me at 11 on GB News for Headliners, in which I'll be joined by 2 of the UK's top comedians discussing tomorrow's papers. If it's an important story, we'll cover it, but we'll have some fun along the way. Headliners, the late night paper review that won't send you to sleep like the others will. 7 nights a week at 11 p.m. on GB News.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Welcome to Mark Dolan Tonight. It's exactly 10 o'clock in the news agenda with my panel. Can entrepreneur Elon Musk save free speech with his purchase of the social media giant Twitter? Is a united Ireland now inevitable? And is inheritance morally wrong? Plus tomorrow's papers at exactly 10:30 with full panel reaction. Also this hour, my Mark Meets guest is Dragon's Den star and the genius behind Reggae Sauce. It's musician, chef and entrepreneur Levi Roots. He'll tell his incredible rags to riches story live in the studio in just a few minutes. He made apparently 30 million quid from that sauce. Nice work if you can get it. After this, my take at 10, more COVID tyranny from the EU, and they boast about crushing free speech in the bloc. Thank God we're out. A big hour to come, including tomorrow's papers at 10:30. First, the headlines with Tatiana Sanchez.
Thank you, Mark. This is the latest from the GB newsroom. The Northern Ireland Secretary says he will call a snap election in the country, but hasn't said when. Chris Heaton-Harris said he would give more information next week and would meet with the Stormont parties. There's been no fully functioning devolved government since February. The DUP is blocking the restoration of power sharing in its protests against the Northern Ireland Protocol. Mr Heaton-Harris added he's faced with limited options.
I have limited options ahead of me. I'm under a legal duty to call an election within 12 weeks. I've had lots and lots of talks with all the parties and will continue to do so. And that I hear it when parties say that they really do not want an election at all. But nearly all of them are parties who signed up to the rules, the law that means I need to call an election. So you'll hear more from me on that particular point next week.
Leader of the DUP, Jeffrey Donaldson, says rather than an election, the focus should be on the restoration of Stormont.
I'd rather spend the next few weeks getting a solution, getting this done, sorting out the problems, the real everyday problems that people face with this protocol, whether it's access to medicines, whether it is the price of goods in our supermarkets. This is unacceptable. And I want to see the government now turn its focus clearly to getting this sorted out. And I think the people of Northern Ireland need to know now where we're going with this.
Scotland's First Minister will attend the COP27 climate summit as the Prime Minister's facing backlash over his decision not to go. The Scottish Government has confirmed Nicola Sturgeon will be going to the conference in Egypt next month. Meanwhile, Rishi Sunak is coming under widespread criticism. Speaking this morning from Croydon University Hospital, he said he will instead be focusing on domestic issues.
We're an example for others to follow at the pace in which we've reduced climate emissions, how we're going about protecting our environment, and those things are really important to me. It's important to me that as Prime Minister we leave behind an environment that is better for our children and grandchildren. I'm very passionate about that. I'm very personally committed to it, and I just think at the moment it's right that I'm also focusing on the depressing domestic challenges we have with the economy, and I think that's what people watching would reasonably expect me to be doing as well.
During his first official visit as Prime Minister, Mr Sunak faced questions from patients over his upcoming autumn budget and funding of the NHS.
Yeah, and have you had some family come visit you?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
Which is good.
And they've looked after you really nicely?
Yeah, they always do.
Yeah.
It's a pity you don't pay them more.
Well, we are trying. We are trying.
No, you're not trying. You need to try harder.
Right, I will take that away. Yeah. They are a very nice team there, aren't they?
They are, but it's important because they do very hard work.
They do very good work, yeah.
TV, online and DAB Plus radio. This is GB News. Now it's back to Mark Dolan Tonight.
My thanks to Tatiana Sanchez, who returns in an hour's time. Welcome to Mark Dolan Tonight. Big stories, big guests and always big opinions. My Mark Meets guest is Dragon's Den star and the genius behind reggae sauce, Levi Roots. He'll tell his incredible rags to riches story live in the studio. He's rumoured to have made £30 million from that wonderful sauce. Nice work if you can get it. In the news agenda with my panel, can entrepreneur Elon Musk save free speech with his purchase of social media giant Twitter? Is a united Ireland now inevitable? And is inheritance morally wrong? Plus, tomorrow's papers at exactly 10:30 sharp with full panel reaction. We've got some great stories coming in from tomorrow's papers. But first, my take at 10. OK, take a look at this. Just last week, 15,000 pro-EU Remainers descended on central London as part of the national Rejoin March, backing a campaign for Britain to re-enter the bloc. What a bunch of blockheads. Now, don't get me wrong, they're entitled to campaign for that, and it was refreshing to see peaceful protest rather than the mild terrorism we've suffered at the hands of eco-campaigners of late. But bitter Remainers didn't get the memo and have never accepted the results. And they're not limited to a few unwashed activists on the street. There are powerful forces within the corporate, academic, media and political elite who would like nothing more than for us to return to Brussels with our tails between our legs. But what would we be returning to? Following the brilliant news that US entrepreneur Elon Musk has bought Twitter and will restore freedom of expression onto that platform, the EU respond by boasting that they will crush free speech in the bloc. Following Musk's tweet that the bird is now free, referencing the company's bird logo, top EU bigwig Thierry Breton shot back with this. He said, "Hi, Elon Musk. In Europe, the bird will fly by our EU rules." Chilling stuff. What might they be? Thank God we're out. Far be it from me, as a former Remainer that accepted the result, to actually sell Brexit, but here we go. Brexit is an insurance policy against ever joining the euro and losing control over our economy. Brexit is an insurance policy against single market membership or a customs union, which would mean no independent trade deals ever. Brexit is an insurance policy against a single European army and against the potentially unlimited costs of a possible sovereign debt crisis to prop up countries like Spain, Portugal, Italy, or even France. Brexit is an insurance policy against handing out £20 billion a year in those regular payments, which over 20 years would amount to the entire cost of the pandemic. Brexit is an insurance policy against future COVID tyranny, as the Daily Sceptic online newspaper report that Brussels is planning a hellish new treaty guaranteeing lockdowns and mask and vaccine mandates for a future virus. Brexit is an insurance policy against meddling foreign courts deciding our laws, and it's an insurance policy against unsustainable environmental targets. It's an insurance policy against ever getting sucked into an unaccountable, undemocratic, hellish new country known as the United States of Europe. It's an insurance policy against all of those things and so much more. Now, yes, there have been huge impacts from Brexit, and businesses here and elsewhere are feeling the pinch, as is the economy. Brexit is a massive transition, but it will come good. Brexit is our precious gift. And now, Rishi Sunak, as our Prime Minister, must make sure we never give it away. What's your view, Mark at GBNews.uk? Do you think the siren voices seeking us to rejoin the bloc will get louder? Mark at GBNews.uk is the email throughout the programme. Let's get the opinions now of my brilliant panel. We have radio and Fleet Street legend Mike Porky Parry. We have showbiz queen Lizzie Cundy and top academic Dr. Lisa Mackenzie. Porky, let me start with you. Can we talk about Elon Musk, who has purchased Twitter, but there's not much point in him restoring free speech to the platform if the EU have got their own weird rules about it?
Well, the EU have always overrated themselves, both in their influence within Europe and around the world and their ability to get things right. One of the reasons we got out was because they got most things wrong, OK? And since we've got out, we've had singular successes in certain areas, like, for instance, the vaccine rollout, which couldn't have been done if we were still in Europe. So we know we can do it individually. It just takes a bit more willpower in this country. And, of course, we are constantly fighting the Remoaners who simply will not accept that we are standing on our own 2 feet and we want to be individuals. The Elon Musk situation, to me, is fascinating because I don't know whether, Twitter is now going to become freer or more difficult. I don't know whether it's going to be better for people or worse for people because Elon Musk is a libertarian, so he believes in a lot more freedom of speech. But a lot more freedom of speech also means there could be a lot more abuse than there is already. I mean, it is such a powerful medium and it's so uncontrollable that nobody, including the people in the EU and Europe who think they can control all our lives, have got any hold on it.
Indeed. Mike, I'd need to possibly correct you on saying that we couldn't have done the vaccine rollout if we were members of the EU. We'd have had to have broken away from the European Medicines Agency's purchasing power in relation to the vaccine. But you're certainly right that politically it would have been unpalatable. And if we'd been in the bloc, we probably would have done it Brussels way and it would have cost lives.
No, Mark, I'm sorry, that's what I meant. If I didn't make myself clear, because we didn't have to abide by the rollout that they did in Europe, which was months behind us, that was a singular success of coming out of Europe.
No,
that's
too right.
The point I was making.
On that, we're agreed. Lisa Mackenzie, do you think Elon Musk can save free speech in the Western world?
So I'm thinking about the two things here. I'm thinking about Twitter and I'm thinking about Brexit. And, you know, I'm on Twitter quite a lot. I'm a political commentator, so I've got a lot to say. But I did notice over the last few weeks the sort of Remainers, the ultra Remainers that absolutely, don't care or are not interested in, the vote that we had in 2016 are constantly on Twitter, sort of saying exactly what they think about usually thick, racist people from places where I come from. So I come from Nottinghamshire. And one of the things, and that it was a place that voted for Brexit. So I'm thinking about now Twitter and how that has been used as a medium. The sort of ultra-Remainers use it as a medium in order to sort of vent constantly about these sort of stupid, thick. And it's also very classist as well. There's a lot of anti-working class language in that as well. So I'm now thinking through whether these sort of ultra-Remainers, how do they feel about Elon Musk? Like you said, he's a libertarian. He believes in free speech. Possibly Donald Trump is going to return to Twitter. And I'm wondering how these two things are going to actually marry up. Will the sort of Remainer-arty or whatever they are, will they all leave Twitter in droves? It'll be interesting to see.
It will indeed. Lizzie Cundy, it's important that we're able to express our views. In the course of the pandemic, people's accounts were permanently suspended simply for sharing official government data about the virus. So this purchase of Twitter is an important moment for free expression, isn't it?
Without a doubt. And I'm, for one, very excited about it. And what a character he is. I mean, if you saw him going into Twitter headquarters, he was holding a sink. It was so funny. Has this sunk in? Yes, it has. And me, I am so happy. And I'm happy that Donald Trump is back on. It's going to be exciting. And I think we all should be allowed to say what we want and how we want. And I always believe in freedom of speech and not being censored. But not one side size fits all with here, and I don't think, you know, Twitter is a global thing, but what you tweet, say, in Qatar, isn't what the same you can tweet in, say, Croydon. There are rules, I'm afraid. But no, I'm very happy about this decision. I'm so glad he's got it. But, you know, Boris was there, he got Brexit done. Now it's down to Rishi to make it work. So come on, Rishi, we have to make this work. And look, 52% voted for Brexit, don't forget.
Yep.
And I know lots out there don't want Brexit. I'm afraid it was the people's vote. And we're, you know, a democratic country. We won by 52%. So let's get on with the job.
And we are agreed on that. My brilliant panel are back in just 15 minutes' time for tomorrow's papers, which are hot off the press. We've got some great headlines coming for you. But just, no pun intended, let that sink in. Elon Musk has bought Twitter, which means that when you're tweeting in the UK, you can tweet whatever you like, as long as you don't break the law. If you're in the EU, you will be censored by Brussels. Thank God we're out. It's time now for this. It is time now for Mark Meets, in which I speak to the biggest names in the world of politics, showbiz, sport and beyond. Tonight, a man who exploded onto our screens as a hopeful on the business investment show Dragon's Den. Levi Roots pleaded with the likes of Peter Jones and Richard Farley for a humble few £1,000s to get his amazing Caribbean sauce on supermarket shelves. Well, they said, I'm in. And the rest is history, including a reported £30 million fortune. What a story, what a life, and what a guy. I'm delighted to say that Levi Roots joins me now in the studio. But first, here is a clip of the big man in action on Dragon's Den all those years ago.
Put some music in my food for me and give me some reggae, reggae sauce. Hot reggae, reggae sauce.
It is a complete punt, but I kind of probably would enjoy it. I've got a few people in the marketplace that I could introduce you to, but I'd want a little bit more of a slice, but I wouldn't want to take too much away from you because I think you need to earn a living. But I would offer you half the money for 20%.
I'd match that, 25,000 for another 20%, so you'd be talking 50,000 for 40%.
I would accept it gladly.
Put some music in your sauce too.
I'll never forget watching that show. I do love Dragon's Den, but that was an absolute all-time highlight of the show, the golden era of that programme. Well, I'm delighted to say that Levi Roots joins me now. Levi, welcome to GB
Mark,
News.
thank you so much for having me.
Look, how many times have people said this to you, but I'm in?
Yeah, lots. Lots,
Listen,
which is always good to hear.
I've just spoken to my accountant, and I can offer you £50 for 1%.
Yeah. I'd have to take 50% of your earnings.
Well, what you get, listen, I've not got money, but I've got expertise and a massive audience.
Well, I think expertise is what we need, what I'm collecting, you know, because I talk to a lot of young people nowadays, which I'm so lucky to have them listening to me.
Yeah.
And what I need for them is inspiration. So, yeah, it'd be brilliant.
That's wonderful. Look, I'm really excited about your song for the Rugby World Cup finals, the Reggae Warriors, Jamaica's national rugby team in the World Cup for the first time. We'll come to that in a moment. Wonderful, wonderful song that you've written. Of course, you're a musician, restaurateur, entrepreneur, author. Which of those jobs do you enjoy the most?
Well, I think the music is perhaps where my heart is, you know. People will always ask me what would I take on that, you know, that journey, whether it's the butler sauce or it's my guitar. But I would say the sauce, you would eat that and you would finish it and that would be it. But with music, you'd have inspiration for life. So I think the music is what makes me tick.
Well, the music resonates. Let's talk about this wonderful new song that you've written, because the Reggae Warriors, Jamaica's national rugby team, first ever Caribbean country to make it to the World Cup finals. Sunday, the 16th of October. Well, we've had that, haven't we? Actually, it's tomorrow. Tomorrow's the big game.
The big game. Sunday, against Lebanon.
And it's the Lebanon, Jamaica in Wigan.
Yeah.
So it's a big. This is the last of the three games. And this is a big moment for the country.
Yeah. It's such, and I think these boys have brought something special to the Rugby League World Cup, because everybody else is about winning games, you know. But I think what these boys have been I think they brought something special, being the first Caribbean island to play in a Rugby League Cup finals. That's something that's gone down in history. So no matter what these boys do, whether they win, lose or draw, I mean, they played New Zealand the other day. Who's going to win against
Good luck with that.
For being the first time you're having a game in the World Cup. Yeah. But I think what they've brought to it is this inspiration, saying that it doesn't matter where you are, where you're from, you can do it. You have conviction, you have a dream, then you can make that.
But the first game was Jamaica, Ireland in Leeds. My family are Irish, so how did the Jamaicans do against the Irish?
Well, I think we scored points, which again, it was all we was looking for. Just
the Irish can be a bit dirty, you know.
They can be a bit dirty, but they played fair in that game, and I think Jamaica did really well against them. I think the passion that they played, it was clearly on TV showed, and I think everyone watching the game, Jamaica was their favourite second team. No matter even if you were Irish, then you still love the Jamaicans.
Well, I think it's wonderful. So what are you going to do on Sunday? Where are you watching the game?
I'll be there. I'll be there on Sunday, yes. I'll be there hoping to get into the dressing room to do a little team talk.
You've got to do a team talk. Yeah. And maybe some reggae sauce.
Well, they've got that. That's what they're playing on.
They've got unlimited amounts of reggae. Listen, the song is called Sweet Jamaica.
Yeah.
So let's take a listen. This is absolutely beautiful, written and performed by Levi Roots. So this will be played on Sunday.
Yeah. Yeah, this is how I got involved with the team. Yeah. I think I wanted to inspire some of the lads who are not Jamaican. A lot of them are born English boys in this country, but part of the Jamaican diaspora. And I thought it was important for them to understand what it is to be Jamaica. What does the coat of arms mean in Jamaica when it says out of many, one people? You know, and what does the national anthems mean? So I wrote the song and draw words from the coat of arms and the national anthem and what it means to be Jamaica, taking them up to Blue Mountain Peak within the lyrics and then into the market eat, about reggae music shaking up every street. So it's just really about what it is to be Jamaica. And I think these boys have taken it on and created history, being the first Caribbean island to play.
A huge moment of national pride. Actually, the wonderful bobsleigh team in the Winter Olympics, which was the Cool Runnings team, made famous, immortalised in a Disney film.
Immortalised, yeah.
And there are parallels there. And that was a moment of great national pride, and we've got the same now with the rugby.
Absolutely, because us Jamaicans always talk about this Jamaican superpower called the Talawa. And I think all Jamaicans will know what that is because we use it. Usain Bolt used the Talawa when he's running, you know, his world record breaking thing. And the Talawa is what we say in Jamaica, that even though the island is small, we say we're little, but we're Talawa. And Talawa means strong, stoic, gentle, but everything, but it gives you the heart to be able to go into an arena that you're perhaps not used to. But if you believe in who you are, then you can excel, and I think these boys have got that.
Did you have Talawa when you entered the Dragon's Den studio?
I absolutely did, and I slayed those guys in there. I absolutely slayed them.
They didn't know what was coming, did they?
They did not know what they were. And I suppose everybody else that said to me, Levi, don't take the guitar, don't sing, because I thought they were telling me to be someone else. But I thought it's really good to be you, because it's easier when you're you and not pretend. And me with my music is me 100%. So even though my kids and everybody was saying, look, Dad, this is not a show about, about music or X Factor or anything. This is about business and enterprise. I still want it to be me. And I think that's the reason why Peter and Richard invested.
And are you still in touch with them? Do you still have a relationship?
Well, Peter and I has become, much more than just an investor. We have been in business now 16 years since I was on the Den together, and it's just a wonderful relationship. I brought my shares back from Richard Farley, the other dragon that invested. But I think I'll always want Peter in there. And in business, you will always want somebody that knows more than you, and Peter is that person to be able to mentor.
Any more sort of business ventures for you?
Well, I've got the Levi Roots movie coming out soon. We start production in that.
And is this the story of your life?
The story of my life, the story of the source of my grandmother, of my mother, of the Jamaican diaspora that came to the UK UK during the Windrush generation.
Yeah.
Of course, my parents.
Which Hollywood superstar is going to play you?
Well, I don't know. I was in the Chain of Hope event the other day, and I saw Idris Elba on stage, and I thought to myself, yeah, maybe, just maybe.
we might take Elba, definitely. And it's obviously changed your life. How do you handle the fame? It must be a mixed blessing.
I think handling the fame is an easy one, really, because, like I said, you have to be you. Because if you're not you, then it becomes all kerfuffle and you don't know where you are. And I'm glad that when I said to Peter after the investment, I did say to him straight after, I said, how shall I play this? Because I knew that I was coming from being a dreadlocks Rastaman from Brixton that cooks a bit and sings a bit. And all of a sudden I was being usurped into stardom by winning on Dragon's Den. I said to him, how should I play this? And he says, no, Levi, I didn't invest in the sauce. I invested in you. And it just gave me the most amazing free-for-all to be able to just be me.
Did you have a bit of cash in the bank when you entered the Den?
Absolutely broke. I couldn't afford the taxi fare that morning to get to the Den at all. We had looked through our pennies, me and the kids together, and saying that I'm going on the most important journey of my life, and we couldn't even afford the taxi fare. So it was that bad, but I still went in with conviction.
It doesn't reflect well on the BBC, who should have put you in a cab.
They should have.
We do that at GB News because we look after our guests. And now, I mean, look, it's the money's not important, right? You've created a great sauce that gives so many people pleasure. It's a fabulous product, Reggae sauce. Thanks for my bottle. Amazing music, including One Dream, One Team, Sweet Jamaica, and all of your music stuff. And your cooking show. You know, you're a force for good. But just my viewers will just be like thinking about that figure. Sunday Times Rich List, £30 million. So, I mean, tell me about how your financial circumstances have changed and how that's changed your life.
Well, it's never been about the money for me personally, because my mum passed away 2 years ago, and I would gladly give back 30 million quid to have her back around again.
Of course you
so
would.
for
But
me,
you should be on a beach. Why aren't you on the beach?
Well, because I love Brixton, where I'm from, and people always ask me, why do I still live in Brixton? Why am I still hanging around here? But
you bought a bigger house there?
No, I have not, because I think it's...
Levi?
No, not at all. I think it's really important that when I was a kid growing up, I never saw someone looking like a Levi who used to come around to Brixton.
You're not in the same place, though. You're not in the same place?
Well, I am in the same place. Same place where the source invested.
Not the same property?
Same property, because I think it's important that...
You bought it now, though?
No, you haven't bought it. It's still... I still live as how I normally used to live.
Has the rent gone up?
But no, absolutely not. I think it's important that you try to inspire the local kids. And I come from a area that really needs inspiration. So it's crucial that I'm around, that kids can have a little chat with me.
Well, speaking of inspiration, what an inspiration it's been to have you in the studio. A proper national treasure, and the song is out now, One Dream, One Team, Sweet Jamaica. And can I say, good luck, Jamaica, on Sunday. We're all rooting for you. The paper's next. So there you go. Breakthrough deal in migrant crisis is the front page of The Express. Also, Queen Camilla in mid-air drama. Find out more on that very, very shortly.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akua, on Friday, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today.
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Friday, Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Every Saturday at 2 o'clock, join me, Darren Grimes, for Real Britain. I'm not afraid to give you a platform and say it how it is.
Come on, make the case. Something like this is very, very important to people.
And we're always up for a laugh on this show.
God, honestly, you'd think there were no problems in the world.
Real Britain, every Saturday on GB News.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flop at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
to each and every one of you
for helping our great nation
find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
On TV,
on radio,
and online.
We're proud to be
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
I will get to your brilliant emails shortly, mark at gbnews.uk. But at this time, every Friday, Saturday and Sunday, we take a look at tomorrow's papers. So let us now start, hot off the press, with The Telegraph. And they lead with fears of university bias against fee-paying schools, and windfall tax on banks will make the city less competitive. The City of London will lose out to international rivals and become a less competitive place to do business if the government introduces a windfall tax on banks. Rishi Sunak has been warned. Of course, the Prime Minister looking for any way he can to balance the books.
Yeah, but windfall taxes are not it, are they? All windfall taxes do is persuade multinational companies to go and settle somewhere else, not in this country, you know?
Well, that's it. We'll come to that. We'll definitely come to that, because it's a hot debate to be had about those windfall taxes. Do they do more harm than good? We'll get through some of the other front pages first. We've got The Times. Sunak will deny King his trip to COP talks. Rishi Sunak is upholding Liz Truss's decision to stop King Charles attending COP27, despite the monarch champing at the bit to go. Of course he is. Bite back. James Corden dismissed claims he was rude in a New York restaurant, saying he had been protecting his wife. The Daily Mail, Navy probes submarine sex pests scandal. Claims of bullying and sexual harassment of women in the submarine service triggered an urgent Navy inquiry today. Whistleblowers exposed serious claims of mistreatment up and down the chain of command. Sounds dodgy, doesn't it? Yeah, it does. Sounds like some of our naval vessels double up as knocking shops. Yes. Who knew? Yeah. The Daily Express now. Breakthrough deal in migrant crisis. An ambitious deal aimed at ending the Channel migrant crisis is close to being signed with the French. Rishi Sunak has personally intervened to solve this growing problem of illegal migration into the country. Queen Camilla in mid-air drama is also in the Daily Express. We'll get more on that shortly. And now we'll go to The Sun. Tyson Fury exclusive. My baby's brave fight inspired me to win mine. Tyson Fury, the brilliant boxer, has revealed for the first time how the near death of his baby daughter sparked his greatest win in the ring. Athena was born prematurely last year, just weeks before the Gypsy King's epic 11th round KO of Deontay Wilder. He said in his new book, Gloves Off, Athena's successful battle inspired me to win mine. Wonderful story. The Guardian next. Sharma's call to tax excessive oil profits. That comes back to the windfall tax, which we'll raise with my panel shortly. The Daily Mirror. OAP speaks up for Britain. Pay up PM. Hospital patient Catherine, 77, tells Sunak to give nurses a pay rise. The Eye Weekend. Sunak allies call for purge of Tory right. As truce ends, Rishi Sunak's facing growing calls to sack Home Secretary Suella Braverman before purging the party of the influence of Boris Johnson and right-wing supporters. And what's that going to do for party unity? FT Weekend, Musk closes deal for Twitter as big tech valuations lose billions. And last but not least, NHS in crisis, say the Daily Star. You're not the Tory Messiah, you're a very naughty boy. It wasn't the cosy bedside chat he was expecting as PM Rishi Sunak got a telling off over paying hard-pressed nurses a pittance. Patient tells Rishi to give nurses the pay rise they deserve. And those are your front pages. Reacting to all of that is radio and Fleet Street legend and TV star Mike Porky Parry. We also have showbiz queen, entrepreneur, actress, wag, singer, you name it, Lizzie Cundy, and top academic ethnographer, anarchist, no less, the brilliant Dr. Lisa Mackenzie. And Lisa, let's discuss the windfall tax issue with the Telegraph reporting that the PM's been warned not to have a windfall tax on on banks because it will make the city less competitive. Your view?
Do you know what? I'm always suspicious when I see these headlines because I don't know if you remember Brexit, but that was one of the things that the city said about Brexit. If we go ahead with Brexit, the financial system will move abroad. It will go to Germany. We'll lose the city. So this is all.
It never happened.
And it never happened. So the thing is, you know, I'm always suspicious when I get these headlines about we will leave if you don't do something, and I think it's strong arming of the sort of financial industry. And let's be honest, the financial industry, you know, they've got a lot of power, and I think that they use newspaper headlines like this to frighten people.
Yeah, well, I think that's the issue, isn't it? It feels like Lizzie Cundy, they're just sort of floating this idea.
I think they are.
Seeing what the reaction is.
But look, he's got a big job on his hands, Rishi. Look at the economic crisis we're in. He's got a multi-million-pound black hole to fill. Yeah. And he hasn't got a lot of time, OK? And people are shouting for a general election. He has to prove it, not in words, but in action. And I do think, you know, he's like a forensic accountant, isn't he, Rishi? He really is.
Yeah.
But
very managerial, isn't he?
But look, Keir Starmer's been calling for the windfall tax, and anything Rishi now does, he's saying, you're copying me, like the energy freeze capping, you know, everything. So Keir Starmer's going to say, well, you're just copying us in Labour. But let's see what happens here. I can't really see it, as I agree with what Mike's about to say.
Well, the issue is, Michael, that you can't injure or damage or hinder the goose that lays the golden eggs, which is what the City of London is.
I think about 30% of all taxes in this country come from 1 square mile, the City of London, and the industries that it leads across the world.
Which pays for hospitals, pays for schools, pays for police.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, take the row about, you know, bankers' bonuses and all that and the cap on that. They already pay about 65% in taxes on multi-million-pound earnings. Now, I can't believe that Rishi Sunak can ever allow this to happen. He honed his ability as a banker in Stanford, in the United States of America, OK? That's where he went to become the great banker he was. And he made millions. He's not going to allow the City of London to fall behind Singapore, to fall behind even places like Germany.
That's right, Frankfurt, Paris.
Frankfurt, Paris.
Dubai.
Dubai, New York.
Or where you live, Stockbroker's Belt, Surrey.
Stockbroker Belt, Surrey.
Can we just have a pause there while we look sort of...
Can't with Mike.
While we sort of going on about...
that, Lisa.
While we talk
You can pause if you like.
No,
but
I'm going to... No, well, let's have just a pause there, because let's remember what happened in 2008. Before we start bigging up the bankers and how fantastic they are and all the hospitals that they built, let's think about the amount of austerity that came globally because of the government...
Tony Blair,
which started
Gordon
to
Brown,
print...
Chancellor.
Listen, I'm an anarchist. I hate all of them. But let's remember the bankers, what they did with gambling around... And let's remember what they were gambling on. People losing their homes.
What's that got to do with profits and taxes?
Because you're correct. Because
nothing.
the financial crisis back in 2008,
which we haven't recovered.
Under Tony Blair,
but we haven't recovered from that.
And, you know, we haven't recovered from that, and I'm sick of people blaming Brexit.
But that was soft touch on banking.
Exactly.
This is not about soft touch. This is about discouraging people from making big profits, because if they do, they're going to get taken by a government. We all know, everybody knows, governments are the most incompetent people in the world to spend our money. Our money should remain in our pockets, because the individual spends it better than governments. Governments waste money, so why give more to them to waste again?
Exactly, and what I have to agree with Mike, he is like the forensic accountant, and he is a hedge funder and he's made it to the top job in 7 years. That's something.
Yes, absolutely.
He's got something about him, although this would certainly be a policy that Labour would be looking at, which is to look at bankers and their massive the profits of the banks.
The same story on that page on the Telegraph, fears for university passing. They want to tax private schools.
Do you want me
and if they tax private schools will close down, and then the state will have to educate those children.
I'm afraid at the minute...
God.
No, can I just say at the minute, there's a cigarette paper between Labour and Conservative at the minute. There isn't much difference between them at the moment.
Well, we don't know what Labour stand for.
But we don't know what Labour stands for. And I'm afraid Keir Starmer can sling all the mud at Rishi about being wealthy and rich, but he's not coming forward with what he feels and who he is. We don't know. He doesn't even know what a woman is.
You have to wonder, don't you? He needs to meet you, Lizzie Cundy. Lizzie, you're...
only find out what a woman is.
You're pretty friendly with the royals, and King Charles now has been banned from going to COP27, so we're told by our previous Prime Minister, Liz Truss. Do you remember her?
Yes, I just do the lettuce.
And by our... the lettuce, exactly, the iceberg that froze. And, of course, under Sunak as well, new Prime Minister Sunak. Sunak will deny King his trip to COP talks.
Well, I said this earlier, didn't I? I thought it would be a good idea if he did let King Charles go. I mean, look...
Start moaning
Rishi
about the planet.
can't do it. He's got representation
Getting very political.
there. But I think it would be a good thing.
Wagging his finger at us.
It's something he's passionate about. It really is. And I don't think there's any harm if King Charles wants to go, let him go. King
Charles has got the carbon footprint of a third world country.
That's right.
Well,
and it then becomes so high profile. Oh, King Charles is here. It must all be true. And it's not. It's an open debate.
You should go, Lizzie.
More consideration.
I'm wearing green tonight.
Sharm el Sheikh. I think. Is that not where you go for your...
Listen, there's no harm. I don't understand why he's denying. If Charles wants to go and can make a difference, and it would be fantastic for our country, why not let him go?
He's protecting Charles. He's protecting Charles because Rishi Sunak is shrewd and knows that if Charles becomes political, it'll be very divisive.
But this isn't something that he's always been passionate in.
Lisa, what the Queen thought. We didn't know. We didn't know what the Queen thought about climate change.
No, we didn't.
Long may that continue under King Charles.
But we do know what King Charles thinks. And as a Republican, I would...
anarchist.
Yeah, I'd say send him. Let him do his worst.
No, it becomes too high profile there.
Breakthrough deal in migrant crisis, writes the Daily Express.
Oh, yeah, I believe that when I see
it. Mike Porky-Parry's not having that, but this is something upon which Rishi Sunak will be judged at the next election. This country is predominantly very, very welcoming, isn't it? And it's very diverse and it's very tolerant. Yes, there is awful racism here, but it's I think, a global beacon of diversity, the UK.
Definitely.
And therefore, it's not unreasonable for all Brits to object to the sight of 1,000 people landing on our shores every day illegally, 40% of whom we discover in the summer were Albanian.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on this? It's a massive issue. Do you believe that there might be a breakthrough in the offing with France?
I hope so. I really do hope so, because I think one thing that everyone can agree on, left or right or anarchist, I think we can agree on we don't want the sight of thousands of people coming across the channel on blow-up boats.
And possibly drowning.
And for different reasons. I mean, my reason is, when I see women and children getting off those boats, it really does break my heart to think about what are the situations that they are running from.
But also they're mainly men, let's be honest. They're mainly
I mean, there is an argument. There is an argument of when you see lots of young men coming over, you wonder why are they coming over?
They're going missing as soon as they get there. A lot of them are going missing.
But we do see women and children in those boats as well. We do see those.
Well, you do, but only if you're right, sir. But look, you can solve this tomorrow. The FBI, the CIA, MI5, MI6. Are you telling me
DFS?
Whatever. They can't get their act together and get the leaders of the people smuggling gangs.
But look, Priti Patel couldn't even get the plane off.
Look, do you know what I'd do? I've a simple solution which could solve this problem overnight. I would ban the sale of rubber dinghies in France and Belgium. I'd literally ban them. If you were found selling a rubber dinghy, you go to jail for 5 years, OK? Because you are probably part of the people smuggling industry, which is massive, which generates millions, if not billions of pounds. Close that industry down and you've solved it. Why do you need rubber boats in France and Belgium in November and December? You don't need them.
You could have saved Priti Patel her job with that. That is such
the painful
a good...
truth, Elizabeth Cundy, briefly, the painful truth is that whether we like it or not, I think we need the cooperation of the French, and it seems that Sunak is trying.
Keep giving them more
Sunak
money.
is trying.
Giving the French
trying
more
to engage
money.
with Paris.
They keep letting us down. The French keep letting us down because they don't really care, because they're on our waters, and our schools, our hospitals can't manage alone.
I agree.
Okay.
The French just want these people off French soil.
Exactly.
Where's the best place to go? Keep going to England.
Yes,
but
and you do
our
have to
Home
worry.
Secretary really mean what,
Well, that's why I
unlike
mentioned
Priti
in my
Patel.
big opinion that I think that Rishi Sunak was very brave, reinstating Braverman, and I think it shows that as a Prime Minister, he's got a pair of balls on him. Can she fix it? Yes, she can. It's massively important. Voters really care. The migrant crossings are a humanitarian, economic and national security disaster. Fix it, Rishi, and fix it now. More from the papers next.
Weekday afternoons on GB News, we've got the whole of the UK covered. From 12 to 3, it's GB News Day with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Gloria Di Piero. You'll get the very latest on everything that's been going on across our great nation.
And from 3 till 6, watch out for GB News Live with me, Patrick Christys. I'm not here to mess around. With all the biggest topics and guests, you will always be up to date. GB News Day and GB News Live from 12 p.m.
Only on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
My name's Tom Harwood, and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
On Mark Dolan tonight, we have a simple plan, which is to inform, stimulate and entertain in equal measure. It's all about getting your opinions on the national television airwaves. I love my viewer emails, mark@gbnews.uk. So do join me from 9 p.m. to midnight every Friday, Saturday and Sunday for big guests, big opinions and a big presenter. 6'5", don't you know? See you then on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, Matt. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.
Join me, Arlene Foster, for the briefing on GB News. Every Friday at 3 p.m, I'll give you all the latest political news and analysis, and we'll have robust live debate. To make sure that you're caught up on all of the biggest issues of the day, we'll bring on experts in their field. I'll ask the questions that you'd like to ask. We're not afraid to tackle discussions from all perspectives, including yours. Don't forget, the briefing with me, Arlene Foster, every Friday at 3 p.m. on GB News.
Well, the best bit of my show is when you get in touch. Lots of emails coming in, mark@gbnews.uk, on the windfall tax. Should there be a windfall tax not just on energy companies but banks, as is being hinted at in today's Telegraph newspaper? Elizabeth says, Mark, a windfall tax is dotty. First, they never admit these companies don't belong to us anymore. They're international, and if we tax them all over again on the tiny bit they earn here, they would go elsewhere.
Exactly.
Other companies would be deterred from investing here. Secondly, they never tell us what the losses were last year.
20 billion.
There you go, 16 billion for Shell, 18 billion for BP,
Yep.
5 billion or so each from pulling out of Russia. Those losses were 3 times as much as the gains now. Are we supposed to reimburse them in a bad year? Well said. And on Levi Roots, my wonderful Mark Meets guest, Steve says, Mark, top slot with Levi Roots. I've watched the Rugby League World Cup and Jamaica have been a joy to watch. Jeff says, Mark, what a lovely man Levi Roots is. God bless him and God bless Jamaica. Jeff, absolutely, will be rooting for them on Sunday in the Rugby World Cup. A couple of big stories before we go. This one is floating around the papers. Chris Heaton-Harris, the Northern Ireland Secretary, said he's legally bound to call an election as the DUP and Sinn Féin fail to reach an agreement. With Sinn Féin, the biggest party in Stormont, and Catholics outnumbering Protestants for the first time, is a united Ireland now inevitable? Mike Porky Parry.
Well, I think it's been coming for years. Now, I spent 18 months in Ireland during the hunger strikes, OK, in the early 80s.
You didn't participate in those, did you?
Well, I didn't participate in the hunger strikes, as you can possibly say, but it wasn't really funny, actually. It was a very serious part of the history of relations between Ireland and England.
At low points.
Mrs Thatcher was in charge. She refused to give in, and the hunger strikers died, and the bins lids were banged on the pavements. You knew another hunger striker had died. So I got a feeling for Ireland in those days. I always said, eventually, naturally, the Catholic population will exceed the Protestant population because they tend to have more children. Do you see what I mean? So eventually, over 2 or 3 generations, it's going to happen. However, it's not just going to be that anymore.
Yeah.
It's going to be the political lineup. And do we think that Dublin really want to inherit the 6 counties of Ulster, the 6 of the 9 counties of Ulster, which are currently under the control of the United Kingdom? I'm not sure they do, because look at all the problems they're going to inherit. And
economic and social problems.
Economic and social, and it's very expensive, Northern Ireland, you know, in terms of what the UK has to spend to keep them up to the level of the rest of the United Kingdom. And if Dublin have to take that on, it's going to be a huge burden. So it's not a simple problem to support. They might eventually have a majority of people by birth who traditionally would opt for United Ireland.
Demographics may change it.
But also,
Demographics will change it.
But also politically as well. The DUP are not doing themselves any favours here at all, are they? No. Politically, you know, the people in Northern Ireland want a government. They want things to run. They want policies to go through. They want services, and the DUP are not doing themselves any favours. No. So I think probably I don't know, the unintended consequences might mean that Ireland becomes united. And I'm going to be quite honest, I think it's time.
But
well, I think it would be a tragedy.
British, so they don't care either way.
You know, I think it would be a tragedy if Northern Ireland did not remain part of the United Kingdom. I've got family in Northern Ireland. It's just it's the makeup of our country. The United Kingdom is Northern Ireland, Wales, Scotland, and England. And for me, Lizzie, that's the total priority. And I honestly, I cannot think of a more important issue for this country.
I'm with you, Mark, but there's a poll that's out saying 54% of British don't actually care anymore. No. They're so sick.
It's generational.
Well, I was there, I was there sadly in the IRA bomb at Bishopsgate. I don't know if you remember. It was on. It was in 1993, and I was a policeman actually saved my life. I was there, and I hope we never go back to those days where we see that sort of massive.
They are the most loyal members of the United Kingdom.
Correct.
It's the only place that I know in the United Kingdom where you see the Union Jack flying from the roofs of houses.
It's very true. You do.
Within Ulster, you know.
And
I've got Irish in me. I've got from County Mayo, and I would love there to be,
and
just do it.
And you're wearing green tonight.
Green for the Irish.
Well,
exactly.
Listen, I've got family in Northern Ireland. I've got family in the Republic of Ireland, and I just, I love Northern Ireland. I think it's one of the most beautiful countries in the world.
It is.
Another thing I love about it is that it's part of Britain. But there you go. It's all about opinions. And if you're watching in Northern Ireland, then what a wonderful thing to have your company. Look, just a couple of seconds on this before we say goodbye. A German heiress is set to give away 90% of her inheritance. She's argued that the wealthy shouldn't get to decide who gets their money. She said she's furious at inheriting all this money. So is inheritance morally wrong, Lizzie? Is it wrong to get to become rich because of your mum or dad?
No, I work hard for my family and my sons, who I will be giving it to, though I have promised Mikey
a little
bit.
Yeah, I want a handout.
You want a handout?
I want a handout from Lizzie Cundy, please.
Do you think it's wrong? I mean, you worked hard for everything you've got.
Yes, I do.
If you had kids, they didn't deserve
they're not going to grave rob me. It's grave robbing, OK? I will decide just before I die who gets my dosh. Anybody tries to get in the way, they're a grave robber.
Exactly.
There you go. And what about you, Lisa?
I don't think. Listen, it's not. I don't think it's a moral issue, but it is an issue around fairness and justice in this country. So if we start thinking about people that have inherited lots and lots of money, we have to acknowledge that they have had some unfair advantages.
OK. Well, I just want to possibly counter that by posing a question to you, which is, what's the point in working hard all your life, in staying out of debt, getting up at 6 in the morning, doing 12-hour days, if then when you die, the state takes all that money off you? And also, don't forget that you've already been taxed once on your income, so surely what's left is yours.
Exactly.
I don't agree with that German woman. The only German woman I agree with is Mrs. Dolan. My thanks to the brilliant Lisa McKenzie, Lizzie Cundy, Mike Porky Parry. We're back tomorrow at 9. Stick around for headliners.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
To each and every one of you.
For helping our great nation.
Find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Across England,
Scotland,
Wales and Northern Ireland.
On TV.
on radio,
And online.
we're proud to be
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday,